In West Gotham City, born and raised, in the Batcave is where he spends most of his days, training out, solving doubt, brooding all cool and all, throwing some B-rangs at the Joker fool, when a supernatural guy who was acting not so good started making trouble in his universe. B got in one little fight and Alf got scared and said, "You're teaming up with that guy who flies through the air." Yo, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Unbuckled Comics, where I read and review comics just for you. I'm your host, Unbuckled Cape, and today we're looking at Batman and Superman, World's Finest. Before we get started, I'd like to let you know there's a Facebook and Instagram of the same title, Unbuckled Comics. Jeez. Where you can keep up with upcoming episodes and comments to episodes, or DM me, spice up your feed. I also got a Discord that I'd love to have you in, and I'd happily send you that link. All you got to do is just, message me. Let me know you want in. Join in on the fun. We have actually started doing a weekly game in our Discord. I call it Capes Detectives. I do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I post 3 pictures that are somehow related to a character, and everyone, has to guess the character, and that's pretty much it. We've done 2 of them so far. I'm having a lot of fun putting it together. I think some people in the community are really enjoying it, and I'm trying to work on figuring out how I can incorporate that into the show somehow, maybe, possibly. Not sure. But that's neither here nor there. Aside from that, I've really been chipping away at some of the comics I'd like to get lined up for the summer. I know I have a busy summer coming up, so I want to develop quite a backlog. That way I can just throw in an intro and, schedule the episode for a release and move on, so I'm not tied up all summer again with, everyone has busy summers. You guys know what I'm talking about. I've also been digging into some other comics that I not necessarily plan on reading the show, but I want to read for myself. Aside from that, you guys are going to be hearing this on, let me look, I know it's early May 2nd, yeah. So you're going to be hearing this on May 2nd. Don't forget, May 6th is Free Comic Book Day. Head over to your local comic book store. They got a bunch of free comics. Sometimes the stores will run other deals to coincide with it. The one I go to, they didn't last year, but the 2 years before they did 10% off store-wide. So definitely make sure that you are in a comic book store sometime May 6th. Also, if you go back 2 months, so that would be March, and listen to the episode where we talk about the new releases that were coming up in May. May was a huge, huge month, especially for DC. But so just, keep that in mind. May is a big comic book month. And you'll hear on Thursday, just a quick little sneak peek. For some reason, so is July. There were a ton of new number 1s in July. But again, just, been chipping away here, trying to work on a couple of things for the podcast, work on a couple of things for just me and my enjoyment, and been reading a lot of comics lately, which that is not a bad thing. So, anyway, we are talking about Batman and Superman World's Finest, and the current run, by the way. We're talking about the current run. So, listener comments for this, I got Big Kid 782. He says, "I never got a chance to read the comics, but I really enjoyed the DC adaptation." Now, Big Kid, I want to ask you what DC adaptation you're talking about, because I don't remember there being a World's Finest, unless you mean the Superman animated series where it's with the Batman animated series crossover. I guess that was Batman Adventure Continues. But anyway, the crossover where Lex Luthor and Joker team up and then Batman and Super team up. I think those episode titles were World's Finest, and then after the episodes air, they shoved them into a VHS and shipped those out as if it was a movie. And then, of course, later on, they got a DVD release and so on and so forth. So that's the only World's Finest that I know of. And I'm not saying that there isn't a different one, but I kind of hope there is. I want you to tell me which one exactly you are talking about. But yeah, so that was our only listener comment for this episode. And that makes me think that either no one else has read this yet, or I guess that just makes me think that no one else has read this yet. So sit tight and hang on. We're definitely gonna talk about it. It's a good one. Alrighty, let's ramble a little bit here about Batman and Superman World's Finest. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure what made me pull this. Maybe it was just the fact that it was Batman and Superman, or maybe it was the fact that Dick Grayson is the Robin in the... Oh, crud. I think that was supposed to be a secret identity. Anyway. That was a bad joke. Prior to this, the only Batman and Superman comic that I read together was Batman Superman Public Enemies. Really like that comic. The animated movie that goes along with that is pretty stellar as well. But I think this is one that I actually pulled the number one off of the shelf and then asked the comic shop if they could order me in the rest of the ones that I was missing, and then, started to pull it, just regularly now. I think I'm going to save talking about the art and stuff to the end, because I'm going to kind of tie it in with the end anyway. So we're going to go straight to the creators. We have the artist Dan Mora. He has worked on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Detective Comics, and Adventures of the Super Sons. And then Mark Waid is our writer. Kingdom Come. Worked on Kingdom Come. That's a huge comic. Then Daredevil, Captain America, and Superman Bright, which I've never heard of before this. So, gonna jump right into the plot. Issue number 1, like I said before, Dick Grayson is Robin, and I love when the Robins are childish, funny. Wow, I'm drawing a blanket. Who has him? Oh, I think it's Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy is attacking Metropolis, and when they swing in, Poison Ivy kind of turns around and she's like, Batman, and Robin's like, and Robin, I'm right here. And then I think later on in the issue number 1, Penguin has Robin captured, and he escapes, and Penguin's like yelling at Batman, and he's like, and Robin, like, geez, we were just talking. Like, I love my Robin to be a little childish, witty banter like that. It makes me happy. But anyway, like I said, Poison Ivy was in Metropolis. Batman, Rogues Gallery, actually it's just Poison Ivy, goes to Metropolis. How do I do this without spoiling stuff? Action ensues. So Batman and Robin track Poison Ivy to Metropolis. Superman, kind of comes out and to stop her, and there's a scuffle, and I don't want to give away too much of who's in it and who's involved, but Superman is poisoned. And we get Batman calling the Doom Patrol to help get Superman to the doctor to save him. And at the end of issue 1, we learn that a larger scheme is looming, and all part of this. There is a small section in this where we get a prior caper of Batman and Superman, which is the one that I talked about with the Penguin. The Penguin? I believe it was the Penguin. Um, where Superman helps out Batman because were they interdimensional beings that could like wield lightning, and Batman gets Superman to help him. Superman actually saves Batman's life, and once they apprehend the villains, Batman turns to Superman and thanks him and shakes his hand. And that part is kind of a nod to let us know, that's the start of their like relationship of being partners, and Batman's trust with him. And I'm gonna get into that a little bit more towards the end when we talk about the characters themselves individually. But there's it's a real short section, but it's just they tell you this quick little story just so they could show you Batman shaking Superman's hand and saying thank you, basically. Um, issue one's pretty quick. It's a quick hitter. It, and again, it's hard to like review issue number ones because they're always just setting the table for what's coming. So, not a whole lot to talk about it. Issue number two, the Doom Patrol, they are able to perform successful surgery on Superman to save him, and the two teams discuss the coming danger. They find a sword with a symbol on it, and it is the symbol of the devil. Naza is how I'm going to pronounce his name. And they, basically discuss the coming danger with that. And then uh, there's a funny part where Batman and the Good Doctor are like one-upping themselves. And some good banter back and forth there. The dialogue in this is incredibly clever. I really enjoyed the writing. I thought everything was pretty well written out. I don't have much experience with the Doom Patrol, so I didn't watch the live action show on HBO. My prior experience with the Doom Patrol actually comes from the final season of the Teen Titans cartoon. Teen Titans, not Teen Titans Go. Doom Patrol is in that. So I know who they are, but I don't know a lot about them. So anyway, we get some backstory here, some foreshadowing there, and now it kind of feels like more of the typical setup. Like, I guess basically issue number one was a setup for the whole series. Issue number one focused more or less on establishing that Batman and Superman are very close friends, and then issue number two is setting up the rest of the plot for volume one, which is what we're looking at, issues 1 through 6. Robin and Supergirl actually go time traveling. They take the sword. So the devil Naza, or we're just gonna call him Naza, I guess. He was sealed away in a tomb for centuries, and there was a group of warriors that were able to imprison him. To find out how they did that, Supergirl can see like radio waves left by items, and she can track them back like through time to the past. They do not explain that well. There is no explanation on how Supergirl can like just time travel at all. So, but anyway, her and Robin do it, and end up in like I'm assuming it was ancient China. They don't really say that either, but as they're traveling, there is a lot of tension between them, and for my money, it's actually the most interesting part of issue two, because when Supergirl shows up, she looks at Superman. She's like, "I can go by myself. I can handle myself." And Superman's like, "Well, you're not a detective. He is, so you need to take him." And Robin's like just not saying anything, which is way out of character because it's Robin. He always has something smart to say. As they're time traveling or getting ready to time travel, they're flying to wherever. They kind of go back and forth and like arguing and almost like that typical teenager, stuff. I don't know if there's like romantic involvement or what it is here, but I'm still rambling about it, so obviously it's a pretty interesting part, and I'd love to have more backstory on that. Unfortunately, we don't get that in these first 6 issues, but maybe later in the series we will. Whew. Um, then, while they are time traveling, Superman and Batman are kind of globe trotting and helping out other members of the Justice League because there are kind of what happened to them. There are villains from other heroes, rose galleries, kind of switching around. And Felix Faust is attacking Billy Batson. Now, it's never made clear if Superman and Batman know who Billy Batson is, but Felix Faust doesn't. All he knows is that he's supposed to keep him quiet, so like he uses his magic to cover his mouth. And the majority of the issue is spent on the battle between Batman, Superman, and Felix, and them trying to rescue Billy. And it's great. I'm at the end of issue 2. I'm happy with this book. I think that the action scenes are fun. Like I said before, the writing is just fantastic with the dialogue, and it is pretty decent pacing. Also, in issue 2, the Doom Patrol is looking for the tomb to imprison Naza. So in issue 3, Robin and Supergirl arrive. I'm sorry. They arrive to the past, but when they come in, they announce that they're there for peace, but they are holding the sword with the symbol of this group of warriors' enemy, and they basically have to survive against them. And each one of these warriors know how to control the elements, and it's actually a pretty tough battle for them both, mainly because they're holding back. I'm going to guess. I think if Supergirl really wanted to, she probably could have just bowled over all of them, but they need them. They need information that they have, so they're the whole time they're like pulling their punches and avoiding what they can and dodging and like trying to hey, we come in peace, and Robin ends up being the one who gets them to stop, and he does it by taking off his mask, and rightly so that it's Robin. Supergirl has a little bit of a temper issue, so it only makes sense that the boy detective would figure that one out. How they seal Naza is a big part of how this book ends, so we're just going to skip right over that. And it doesn't really tell you, but we're going to skip it. So Batman and Superman go supervillain hunting in this one, an attempt to in an attempt to save other members of the Justice League. So we get other members of the Justice League in here. I think one is Flash, maybe one is Wonder Woman. I know the Flash is one because Mirror Master is one of the bad guys. I can't remember who I think Wonder Woman was battling, but it's entertaining. It's nothing overly deep. It's nothing that like I literally just read these this week, and I'm sitting here going, I don't remember which character that is. So it's not overly memorable, and these comics aren't real big. It doesn't take long to read through them, but in the, let's say, 15 minutes it takes you to read an issue, you have fun the entire time. You are well entertained. Where was I in my notes? So, Doom Patrol visit an old friend, and I cannot remember how to pronounce his name, but he's the older general that was always working with Mala. They find him in an attempt to get him to explain to them how to locate the tomb of Naza. And this is actually kind of a sad moment. I know, like, they acknowledge it, that even though he's a bad guy, his situation is pretty depressing, and so there is that. So it kind of, issue number 3 ends on a little more of a somber note. Issue number 4, as I said before, the plot isn't overly thick, but it is fun, and 4 is just more of the same. We do get a another incident here. Supergirl, Robin and Supergirl learn how to trap Neza back in his tomb, but on the way back they hit a time storm, I believe is what they refer to it as. I forget what Supergirl explains what creates them, and I kind of forget what that is. But she loses Robin, so Robin is lost in time as Supergirl gets back. But she doesn't say a word to Superman when she gets back, or Batman, because they are in the middle of a fight for their lives against Naza himself, who uses mind control to control the Justice League. I mean, I feel like we've seen it before, right? It just like we've seen the Justice League battle each other every time we get a mind controlling villain. But what we don't get is Green Lantern was the one that was being controlled to fight against them, and Batman and Superman combined their willpower to get the ring off of Green Lantern's finger. And I don't know whose finger it ends up on, but if you can picture Dragon Ball Z, the fusion, this is exactly that. We get a fused Batman and Superman kicking butt, and it is worth the price of admission, and that's kind of how that ends. So issue 5 is the final confrontation with Neza, which makes it feel like it's ending an issue early. And I don't want to give up how it happens, because once Supergirl reveals to them, hey, this is how we have to trap him, it's like, holy cow, how are we getting through this? And then it turns out that Superman is the one that kind of comes up with the plan, but he doesn't have enough time to explain it. So he does something, and the Batman has to figure it out. And at the end, Batman's like, well, that was quite the gamble. And Superman goes, well, not really, because I was relying on your detective skills to figure it out as I was doing it. So, but then, this is issues 1 through 6, and Robin is lost in time. So, that's what issue 6 is. It's more about Robin being trapped in the past. He ends up traveling with a circus for a while, and oh, excuse me, I'm gonna grab a quick drink while I have that break. And we get a murder mystery at the circus. It is like eerily similar to the murder mystery that happens at a circus in A Lonely Place of Dying. I mean, this one's different with the culprit and kind of how it plays out, but it just feels really, really similar. I don't know if it was a purposeful call to that or not. I don't know really what there is to give up. Basically, Superman and Batman use the same trick that Supergirl did to time travel back. They solve the mystery, and kind of all's well that ends well. And those are the 6 issues. And look, these reviews are a little more lengthy than, or the reviews are typically more lengthy than this, but these are good comics. Like, don't think because I burned through the plot on this that they're not good comics. Like, yeah, there's not a lot of meat on the bone, and really, as far as plot goes, there's not a ton for me to talk about. And maybe once the series gets rolling a little more, there will be. But it's really entertaining. It doesn't have to. Not every comic I pick up has to be really deep and really grab me. Oh, excuse me. I don't know, probably maybe a little less than 15 minutes to read one of these. But that 15 minutes I was reading I was definitely invested because it's just fun. There's no over, like, Neza didn't feel like that bad of a bad guy. They plopped in a character like the Mirror Master, Felix Faust. Again, I can't remember the general's name. We got the Doom Patrol involved. It was basically just a fun romp, and one that I am most certainly here for. Uh, and I have such little complaints, right? I mean, the Doom Patrol was cool. Naza, cool. Or, it was cool enough for me to like him. I mean, he wasn't a great villain, but, enough. And I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the series at the end of this, so it didn't put a bad taste in my mouth. I'm just hoping that this is like appetizer size. I want the next section of 6 issues to be a little bit faster, a little more deep, a little better of a story. Like this, I think, spent most of its time just being fun. Now that I know that we can have fun, let's add a little bit more to that. You know what I'm saying? I think you do. Um, so, talking about each character individually, because the comic was so small and quick, I don't even have a lot to say about each character, but I'm going to say what I can. This is, if I were to have complaints, this is where my complaints would come in. Uh, this version of Batman seems way more emotional than what he should be. Like, there were points when he was yelling at people because of something that was going on. He showed, um, like some worry when Superman was poisoned, and like he was like kind of leaning over next to him, like, "Come on, Clark, pull through this. You have to pull through this," type stuff. Just nothing that I'm really used to seeing many versions of Batman do. And I'm not saying it's bad. It just seemed off to me. So I do hope that we don't always like have this very emotional Batman, especially because he did tend to seem like he was more concerned about Superman than when Robin got lost in space. Speaking of Robin, this is a solid Robin character. I really like him, especially issue 6 where the main focus was on Robin when he's spending time in the past. This is a solid Robin. He's a good detective. We don't really get to see his fighting skills very much. I think in issue 1 we get a little bit of him fighting, but it's his detective skills and then his smart aleck banter back and forth. That's what I like in Robin. So we got that here. No complaints there. Superman, he seemed a little bit too silent, almost as if some of Superman's emotion went to Batman and some of Batman's brooding went to Superman. Maybe not brooding, but doesn't say a whole lot. And then Superman's the one that comes up with the plan at the end. So it was an insanely credible plan, right? It's just, in my mind, Batman should have been the one to come up with it. But small complaints for as fun as it is. And then the only thing that I have on Supergirl was she was very like angry and rash, which is the way it should be. I'm cool with that. But when I think about Supergirl, I just want to know like what was up with her and Robin, and what, like, she seemed to like express her displeasure for him first, but it was definitely mutual. So I'm definitely curious about that, and hope we get to jump into that. Part of what makes this comic so much fun, even though these first 6 issues had very little meat on the bones, it was mostly fluff, is the art style is just fantastic. I got the 6 issues that I read sitting here, and flipping, just kind of panning through, looking at the cover art. It's very pleasing. The contrast, I love the blue. Batman, cape and cowl, I've expressed multiple times. My favorite Batman is the yellow circle around the logo, blue cape and cowl, yellow belt. And he has it here. The Superman logo is, just the Superman uniform's the classic uniform, the red logo, yellow background to the S, red cape, red underwear on the outside of his uniform. It's just it's very appealing. So let's see. If I had to compare this art to a Marvel character, I think I'm going to compare it to a Spider-Man. This art is equivalent to a Spider-Man. It's fresh. It feels young, like modern, like, current. And it's just a good time, Yeah, you can be serious with it, but it's meant more for fun than anything. So I'm gonna say this art is definitely a Spider-Man type of art, as in like Spider-Man personality, not like artwork of Spider-Man comics. You get what I'm saying? Uh, I think the last thing I want to do talking about this is I think maybe talk about the covers. I got the standard covers, not the variants. My least favorite out of the bunch is probably issue number 4. It has Green Lantern in the background and then just Batman and Superman in the front. It's just not my favorite. And I think my favorite has to be issue number 3, the one right before it. Batman and Superman are in the background with like a panicky face, kind of reaching toward Neza. Neza is right in the front, and then Robin and Supergirl are. It almost looks like they're falling. Has something to do with the time traveling, I'm sure, but that's it's a pretty cool cover. But none of these covers are bad. Like I said, the artwork to this is absolutely fantastic, and I love it. So, I think that's pretty much all I have for this. We're only 25 minutes in, which is a good thing because this is also our previews and DC Connect episode, which you would have already heard by this point. So, yeah, I think I'm good. I feel like this wasn't such a big hitting episode. Like I didn't have anything major to say, but I guess that's okay. Like I said, it's a fun comic, and using, is it a what are you doing? Go out there and get it. Is it a get on it, pick it up, or pass on it? It's a pick it up. I don't think you need to run out there and grab it and read it right now. Well, you certainly, this isn't the next thing you have to read. It's not that good. I don't even think it's good enough to be like this should be the next, like within the next 5 things that you read. I just don't feel like it's that good, but I do think it is worth the read. So that is where we are going to end this episode, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me and letting me ramble to you about Batman and Superman's World Finest. I look forward to seeing you next time. I look forward to doing another Batman and Superman World's Finest with you episode. But for the time being, this is Unbuckled Cape. You're listening to Unbuckled Comics, and I'm here to tell you, pick it up.